morning.
I'm State Senator Paige Walley, and you're with us live in the Cordell Hall building here on the State Capitol Complex as we're getting ready to go into the legislative session. And I'm proud to be with our hosts, Brandon and Lawrence. Thank y'all for having me.
Hey, glad to be here, Paige. We're with the Lawrence County Republican Party. I'm Brandon Taylor, and this is Lawrence Sutton. And we're honored you'll have us in your office and have a little sit down this morning before we go into a special session. Just real quick this morning, Paige, what do you foresee taking place first thing this morning, maybe before lunch? How do you see the day going?
Well, it could be a very eventful morning in that we're going to go into the Senate session at 8:30, and we will go through some voting on some bills on second consideration. All that means is that when they're introduced, they're automatically passed, and they have to be passed a second time. Usually what would happen then is they would be referred to committees for later today, state and local government, our judiciary committee and whatnot. That said, though, I think that there very well may be a motion to go ahead and adjourn.
Okay.
And the adjournment motion, there was one yesterday, it wasn't properly filed, so it would have to be reintroduced today. So we could be voting on a motion today to adjourn the special session.
Okay.
What they call sine die, a Latin term, I guess just meaning, it's totally over.
And one of those adjournment did pass yesterday, that's
Right.
correct?
We had an adjournment motion that a lot of people, you didn't vote on it directly, it was rolled in with all the different bills that they vote on first consideration. It's just kind of, you're not gonna be debating them, it's just voted on because every bill has to pass 3 readings, they call it. But the first and second reading is usually just kind of almost automatic.
Okay.
So that passed yesterday, so we could be adjourning tomorrow anyway, but we may take up a motion which would we would have to what they call suspend the rules, meaning we have our parliamentary rules of procedure, but rules can be suspended with a 2/3 majority vote.
Okay.
If 2/3 of the people said, yes, we want to suspend the rules and take up an adjournment motion today, that could be done, and then
what kind of support do you feel like that has? Do you feel like that's got
it's interesting. Yesterday I would have said it doesn't have much support. Because over on the House side, they tried that yesterday.
Right,
And
had
they got
no
6
support.
votes. Yeah,
Yeah.
no support. I'm just hearing, and it could be totally wrong, that since that time and overnight, particularly on our Senate side, a lot of people have been talking and looking at these bills more closely. We had a presentation yesterday from the governor's office to our Senate Republican caucus about what they wanted to achieve. And a lot of questions arose that, is this really an emergency? Couldn't this be handled in a regular session, not a special session? How is this going to really make a difference in what was the original purpose of responding to what had happened in this shooting at Covenant? And there really is no immediate urgency.
Now, just to verify this, so you're saying that the governor's office came down on this and talked about this?
Yes, in our Republican caucus meeting in the Senate,
Okay.
not the governor, but
Right,
representatives of the governor.
But yes, the
So
representative.
we
of
asked
the
them to
governor.
come and talk to us about what are these bills that you're proposing. Let's get down to each one of the 6. Why now? What do they achieve?
Right.
We want to hear it from the horse's mouth, basically.
Right.
And that's great because you had even said on our radio program last week, which was really, really encouraging to the people of Lawrence County, when you yourself said you didn't see a reason why we should have the special session called.
Right.
And I tell you what, that made a lot of people in our county very happy to hear that.
Oh, good. And we kind of reconfirmed that yesterday. Are some of these proposals useful, maybe even important? Yes, but are they urgent and need to be done now? We don't think so.
Okay.
Well,
For most of them.
so how many? I know on the House side we have over 100 different bills that have been, been come out and being proposed.
Right.
What about on the Senate side? How many bills are on the Senate side right now?
I haven't seen this morning, but as of yesterday, there were about 80. But most of those were bills that had originated on the House side, and they had come over yesterday.
Okay.
House members asking senators to sponsor them on the Senate side. So
Gotcha.
these were, when we started yesterday morning, there were, I think, 8 bills on the Senate side. By the end of the day, there were more like 80 because people said, well, okay, I'll sponsor that for you. But the reality is, those, probably if they had 120 bills, let's say, I bet you 110 of them were going to go nowhere to begin with.
Correct,
Mhm.
correct.
And so today, if we don't adjourn today, what would happen is, and I've got some cards that my admin support person makes for me. That is kind of my agenda for the day. We would have a state and local government committee meeting on the Senate side just to take up one or two bills. And I don't think either one of them are the governor's bills. One of them has to do with veteran service officers that we're trying to get some support for them, maybe financial support to go. These are a lot of the ones that go to veterans memorial services at cemeteries, the ones that are there and dressed and are the honor guards.
Yeah.
Right, right.
So and a lot of these honor guards are going to be older men, and just having to travel great distance. But so it's things like that are the important. Yes. Does it have to be done in a special session? No, not necessarily so.
Right.
But if we didn't adjourn today, we would then have some committee meetings for the remainder of the day, looking at some of these different bills. And very likely in the committee meetings, let's say our Judiciary Committee meeting this afternoon, my thought is many of them would be voted down.
Mm.
And so we'd be adjourning tomorrow. So my sense is I'm from talking to leadership and my peers, it's sounding like we're moving rapidly toward adjournment.
Wow.
We thought originally it would be Thursday, Friday. I'm thinking it could be today or tomorrow now.
Wow.
I tell you what, to me, that's really, really encouraging because, most people in Tennessee, they view our Senate as being a little bit more liberal than the House. People look at the House as being more conservative, but it sounds like you and the Senate are really grabbing this ball and showing Tennessee and leading Tennessee on conservatism, or at least saving our rights that people have.
It's interesting, and I would agree with you. That's usually, I think, the assessment. Usually the House is seen as more, I guess, more emotional, and you hear all the protests and this or that, and
Right.
and maybe sometimes they're perceived as more conservative, but the Senate is usually. I've heard someone described it like this at one time to me. They said the House is like kindergarten and the Senate is like a nursing home. You got all this raucous behavior in the House, and sometimes you like it, sometimes you don't. The Senate is usually kind of more steady as she goes, but at the end of the day, I think we do the right thing. And maybe on both sides.
Sure.
Right,
you
right.
get there different paths.
Right. No, I understand that. And then, definitely, but I want to point out the raucous behaviors come from the left so far, at least in this past session.
No, right.
Well, and we've seen that security has been a little more strict during this special session than what we've normally seen. We're hearing about that on the news. It was in the news media last night about the limit of how many people are actually letting into the buildings. So that's a little different than what we normally see in a session.
Different, and I guess it was different because of just we also had yesterday in our Republican caucus, we had the TBI that came, and we had a colonel from the state troopers that came, talking about security and what and why. And I'll be frank, the TBI people said they could pick up no credible threats to folks. And
Good.
While there have been rumors, they couldn't find anything that seemed credible. And the troopers said, we really believe that we have we're going to have a lot of peaceful demonstrators. There might be people yelling and whatnot, but we're not anticipating. We haven't heard anything, but we are well prepared. And they've got, you'll notice troopers around today. They rotate around to make sure ones aren't outside in the heat too long. So every 30 minutes they're switching stations. They decided to limit the accessibility of the tunnel underneath between Cordell Hall and the Capitol, because during the last session they didn't, and people jammed into the tunnel.
Yes, made it inaccessible.
Made it inaccessible for members and others. So they said, we're going to close it 30 minutes before until 30 minutes after the session so that members and staff and their guests and others can get through.
Well,
the Capitol, when you see outside of the Senate House chamber today, you'll notice, I think, that it's cordoned off with like some lanes like you'd have at Disney World or something,
Okay.
where you go down the lane, or and you can't go past these whatever, these little strips that are there just to kind of keep people in line.
Pedestrian access.
Right, and it doesn't let people crowd up against the doors into the Senate or the House.
That's good.
Yeah, but it is not denying access to people that want to be there.
Right.
But it is just saying, look, it's going to be more organized than we typically have. Usually it's just kind of, like before a football game, people just crowd in outside the stadium and there's no organization. This time there is.
Well, we appreciate you letting us come in and sit down this morning. I know you're kind of getting tight on time, but maybe after this is over, we could come back in and have a seat and talk to you about a little follow-up after this is over.
And if we don't go into, like, I'm supposed to have a committee meeting at 9, but I'm not sure it's going to happen now. Everything is a little fluid.
Sure.
Right.
And that's another thing that's very different about this special session. It seems to me it is the schedule usually is very scripted during the regular session.
Right.
So when you're going to be in session, when you're going to be in committee, you know what bills you're going to be hearing days ahead.
Mm-hmm.
This has just been kind of on the fly. We make it up as we go.
Sure.
Is it concerning any to you seeing this happening that way?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, we can see something like this happen at the end of regular sessions. Sometimes things get compressed, and
Right.
we're trying to get out. But usually, bad decisions are made when you're in a hurry.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's what I think I'm concerned about. That said, if we do have committees, we do have some very wise, and I'm the vice chair of the first one that would meet today. We do have some very wise, thoughtful people in these positions, and we're not
Yes.
gonna. It's going to be a very unlikely that anything gets out of any committee, much less something bad. So I think people can breathe a sigh of relief in that regard. And I'm just talking about the Senate side. I've got no clue on the Senate side.
Right. No, I get that. What is your thought process on letting people from other states even into our own chamber and into and hearing what's going on and really protesting? I think, and this is my opinion, I think people in Tennessee, it's Tennessee business. We don't go to California, we go to these other states. And as a matter of fact, other states like California, in order to get into their sessions, you have to be a California resident.
I didn't realize that, but I agree with you. Up to this point,
Yeah.
I have been very comfortable because usually people are coming because they're tourists.
Right,
They're traveling,
yes.
They want to see, wow, how does government work? How does Tennessee
Right.
work?
Yeah.
We've heard good things.
Right.
But when you're talking about busing people in and that kind of thing, I think that's silly and ridiculous. But we haven't gotten to the point where we've been checking residency before
Right.
admission. It's something to think about, though, as we roll into the next regular session.
Definitely.
Well, my thing is, I don't want to limit anybody, but if you're going to come in and you're going to act a fool,
Right.
and like yesterday, they're sitting there chanting, "You are cowards, you are cowards," that has no business. I mean, I have disagreements. I have a whole lot of disagreements with the people on the left, but I'm not going to sit there and say things like that to them.
No, that's very disappointing. You have folks that in our Senate, we have people that are, fellow members that are more on the left. But in the Senate side, at least in the chamber itself, it's always extraordinarily civil. You're never going to hear the bullhorns. You're never going to have the, that kind of. It's kind of like I said earlier, nursing home versus kindergarten. What would you expect? We just have a different demeanor, I guess.
Yeah. Even the people that are Democrats that are a part of the Senate, you don't have any Justin Jones or Gloria Johnsons in this group.
No. And everybody on our Senate side, we try to find connection when it's, when it doesn't compromise principles.
Yes.
What can we do together to achieve the best for Tennessee? And, 95 times out of 100, I think we do those kind of things. Occasionally and you may hear something today on the Senate side of people saying, yesterday there were a couple of just brief speeches about, I'm disappointed that the governor didn't make the call wide enough so we could take up real gun reform. That was said, but it wasn't pontificating or talking about, I was listening to the House side and I heard one member talk about white supremacy, we don't get into that kind of stuff. That's just not right, and it's not true. So, but I think, you know, as Brandon today, you'll be praying as our minister of the day over the session, and it's you know, we really covet that for peace and civility and wisdom,
Right.
and I think we'll find it.
Yes.
We've started that. We prayed that way yesterday together.
Right.
We have we have an office on our Senate. One of our members serves as a chaplain, and so he prayed yesterday as the minister of the day. And we have, you know, we pray over our caucus meetings, and we pray.
We are a Christian nation, and we are a Christian state.
And you know, we're unashamed to pray.
Amen.
You know, in Jesus' name.
That's
we're
right.
Unashamed to pray.
Yes, sir.
And you'll hear that again today. But I think people can be proud. And I think, you know, and I want to say this. I believe I might have shared this on the radio show last week that, you know, the governor has every constitutional right to call this. We wanted to, you know, I think as Christians, honor our governor, our elected leader, and we've done that. Now, when we say governor, if we say we don't believe we need to proceed further, we don't
Correct.
believe this is in the best interest of Tennessee at this point,
Yeah.
we can address these issues as we move into regular session. I think we have discharged our responsibilities in a
We
godly,
agree.
civil way.
Absolutely. I mean, we even had the Republican Party unanimously vote and send a resolution to Billy asking him to stop the special session.
Right.
And I think it's more for what the Republican Party looked at was more for people's safety.
Yeah.
Not necessarily to not hear the bills, but
Yeah.
for people's safety
That's right.
because of what's happening.
Right. And you know, and I will say, I believe you're going to feel extraordinarily safe today.
I guess.
know we did.
We
Yes.
do right now.
I think it's nothing like I think some people experienced during the regular session.
Sure.
And at the same time, I think we have expended a lot of resources to make it that way that
Absolutely.
we might not have needed to. You
That's
know?
correct.
So, you know,
We agree 100%.
so
Yes,
that's the case. But
Paige, thank you for your
glad
time.
y'all are here. Thank y'all for giving me the time to speak with you this morning.
Well, you're giving information that you're not going to get on the news. You're
Right.
giving things back to your constituents that they're not going to see, and so we hope to get a direct line from legislators right back to their folks back at home who want to know. It's hard to get a straight story on the news, so.
And y'all feel
We'll give
free
you
to come back here after the session, after the Senate session today,
Yeah.
unless you want to stay for the House. Theirs is going to go longer; it always does.
Right.
But if you decide to come back, I should be here, you know, all day. Our committees, if we do have committees, and we may not,
Right.
they would meet on the first floor. We
Okay.
have committee rooms. All of our committee rooms, House and Senate, are on the first floor of this building.
Okay.
And then
Okay.
so I'm here on 7, you know, and
So the first floor is where you came and got us and met us at.
actually that was the second floor.
Oh, that's second.
The,
Okay.
the second floor is the entrance on that Capitol side where James K. Polk's grave is.
Okay.
And then the ground floor is the entrance on this other side. But the first floor is where all of the committee business is conducted.
We look forward to seeing you after that's over. Hopefully, we'll get back in here and have a sit down with you.
Good,
You
good.
just get a little catch up. You give us a
Sure.
little debrief on what you see going
Sure,
on.
and let me say this: a lot of people, I've gotten hundreds and hundreds of emails about, you know, people's thoughts and opinions.
Sure.
And some of them are great and appropriate. Some of them maybe cross the line, and I'm outraged. I demand, and these kind of things. That's okay. I get it. But I want folks to understand that in some ways, and I might have shared this on the radio program last week. I played football in college, and I coached, you know, youth sports and stuff. And it's hard to just say, here's what I'm going to do in this moment, when there are a lot of things leading up to that moment that you haven't lived yet.
That's correct.
And so, like being in a ball game, I'm not going to tell you what play am I going to run if I'm, you know, it's 4th down and I'm on the goal line and time's running out, because I don't know, you know, what they're going to do, what defense they're going to line up in.
You don't want to. You don't want to tell them what you're going to do.
That's right.
Because they'll stop you.
That's right, and I can tell you. Here's what I'm thinking. I think today we're going to do these. I think this is the way I'm going to do it. But I'm going to be talking even after we meet with my peers, with our leadership. You know, just trying to get a sense of where are the chess pieces lined up at the moment, and what moves do we need to make to take care of our citizens. You know, to make sure we don't do anything foolish to protect, you know, their Second Amendment rights. To
We
make sure
appreciate
we
that.
don't. So I just have to. I guess in some ways that's saying, trust me, here's what we're gonna try to achieve. It might not be the move you would make, but you may not know some of the behind the scenes dynamics going on at the moment.
Right.
So that's it.
Right.
Well, Senator Page Walley, we thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Thank
Y'all
you,
have
sir.
a wonderful morning. Anything we can do to make it easier, let us know. And Jerry, my admin support person, she's available anytime today, you know, to say, hey, Jerry, where can we go to do this? What do we need to do that?
Awesome. Thank you,
Awesome.
Paige.
Thank you,
y'all.
Paige.
All right. Thanks, sir. Making the time for this.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for doing that.
That'll be going out to your counties back home, so.
Good.